What's going on, guys? Emo Tempest here, and today I'm going to give you another deck profile of Mono Water Fusoya. Now, I do want to talk about this deck a lot because this is my list, by the way. This is what I've been playing personally for the last couple of months, I think. I want to say since the FFBE Fan Fest. And honestly, it's been through a lot of changes. It's gone through a lot of success, and I will be talking about those choices, the card choices I ended up on, and why and how, and so on and so forth. I will be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of this deck and the matchups probably a little bit more. But before I do want to give a shout out to Happy Little Hug Factory, my sponsor. It's a great place for Final Fantasy TCG as well as Vanguard and other cards. Be sure to be on the lookout for them. They will be taking pre-sales for Opus 8 real soon if you guys don't want to miss out on that Kingdom Hearts Cloud. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the deck. So the deck here that I built for you is my version again, like I said, and with good success I've had with this deck, and I will tell you where. So I got second place at the Fan Fest for Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. I talked about that event, but I never did talk about the deck. The deck was still in the works a little bit there, and I did well. My matchups were a lot of water wind, water wind. Mono. I think there was a mono water mirror match. I did place Scions and some other stuff, but it was good. It was about, I think it was 6 rounds. I don't know. There was a few rounds. It was single elimination, so it was a little different. But I did make it all the way and got second place. I was 1 win short of the Bahamut Play Arts, and man, super jealous. But you know, it was a good game, and I can't be mad about second place. Since then, I made some changes. So one of the first changes that I had in that deck was I was playing Opus 7 L Titus, the one that back attacks or whatever, and he's not a bad card. My only problem is that he activates all water monsters, or all water forwards, including your opponents. And that's not something I was looking forward to in so many mirror matches. And with water, wind, and water earth being so relevant these days, it's less important of a card as well. So I ended up taking him out. And then with the increase of water wind and mono wind altogether as an archetype, I started adding Porom. And before Porom there was Ferris, which is the Opus 7 FF5 card. And the reason I was playing Ferris is because it reveals top 5, helps you search for Lena or Knight, and Halicarnassus in this deck, and you can add one of them to your hand. And it was kind of my problem with the deck I had originally. Well, playing with Lena, it was the problem. So Ferris fixed the Lena problem I had with this with Mono Water as a whole, because I always found myself needing either Layla Viking or Lena Knight and waiting for one sometimes, and it just obviously never happened. So that was my problem. But since then, Ferris fixed that, and then now I moved from Ferris to Porom, and Porom fixes that a lot more because it's also an EX burst. It doesn't get the same power stats as Ferris does, because Ferris ends up being a 9K with Lena on the board and Waka, and that's actually really good. But Porom brings a lot more utility, and it also has the EX burst aspect that kind of increases the speed of this deck. But yeah, so then after that tournament, we did have 2 store championships here in South Florida at Cool Stuff Miami. Our population has been growing here. The community as a whole has been growing, and there's been a lot of demand for Final Fantasy. So we're constantly growing. We're always getting new players, which is great. And we were able to host our first store championship in December. And this is the list. This was the final list that I ended up on for that one. And I got first place, ended up winning store championship there. And then again, recently in January, we held the store championship. Again, it's a monthly tournament that pretty much Cool Stuff does in order for, I guess, the community to have a villain, if you will. So that's me at the time, right now, currently still. So whenever any other players beat me at locals, they win a pack on the compliments of the store. But I have to defend my title one more time in a month, next month in February for March. So yeah, and this is the list I took both times. The first one I think I only ended up losing 1 game. And then no, actually false. I went undefeated, I believe. For me personally, undefeated, even if in top when you're playing 2 out of 3, a round loss. I guess it's not a perfect, but it is undefeated record. And then day 2, and then the second one in January, this same list went undefeated completely. So yeah, I'm really confident. I really like the energy that the deck gives, and I'm just gonna go over the cards now for you. So 2 Ephemeral Summer. The only reason I'm playing 2 and not 3 is they don't bring enough late game, and especially after you've used Fusoya, you don't kind of want to like burn out your summons or whatever, because you only have 9 summons in this deck, three of each, and the 2 Ephemeral and the Fusoya place kind of lets you control them or whatever. But after that, after you've played 2, you've already taken advantage of pretty much, or you should have the advantage of the deck. Any more than that, you just require Lena for. Lena is the target. So I'd rather have 2 Ephemerals and 3 Knights. Knights because Knights are better late game than Ephemeral are. And if this deck goes into late game, you want that. You want the 9k power stat as opposed to a 5k power stat. And that's why I kept those choices there. Triple Cagnazzo, obviously. I want to talk about Cagnazzo a lot more because Cagnazzo, I think if you guys remember the way we were talking about, if you remember my last water video, it was mono water 2 ways, and I was talking about how important Cagnazzo is. This deck is no different. Like everyone knows the Cagnazzo board, right, with Scholar, but it's a lot more important now in this game, in this current meta, and the main reason is because Y'shtola. Now everyone is playing Y'shtola, and you have Cloud Darkness, Lena, and Cagnazzo, Halicarnassus, Layla, and Porum. All these are auto abilities that when they come into play, they do something, right? Ephemeral as well. And so, Y'shtola is a real big problem for this deck as well as a lot of decks. But you do have all the tools you need here for that. So one of the important things is if they... while you have Layla Viking out, you can just end up swinging, right? And then if they do bait, they do tech the bait, and you have enough to reduce Y'shtola's damage down, you can drop Cagnazzo early without having to break a Scholar, and then just kill it by power reduction. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of ways that Cagnazzo is used for the constant matchups. So again, against the Vice Kings, helps clear the board. It helps deal with like trade ups with the Layla Vikings, especially when Waka's on the board. And then it's obviously for the board wipe. It also helps with Fusoya if you have that problem with bigger targets. Let's say they have a Cloud, you can drop a Cag first, and then reduce just enough for your Fusoya to be in range, and that should be able to clear stuff like that for you. Next, an even more important card. Both of them actually go in tandem, and Halicarnassus. Halicarnassus is by far my favorite card in Opus 7. Now, and I mean by far, and I take that literally, it is miles away from every other card in Opus 7. And the reason is because it shuts down a lot of plays that your opponent is not only preparing for, but protective of. So the main reasons we play Halicarnassus are Y'shtola, obviously, for obvious reasons. We just talked about that. Dataluma, because Dataluma ping is a problem when we don't have the Minwu. Ida in Scions, which is occasionally a problem for us if she gets out of control, if we don't tempo right there. And what's the last one? The Vikings really as well. Vikings is another thing. You don't want your in the mirror matches or the water wind matchups or anything playing the Layla Viking combo, having dropped Halicarnassus in order for them not to draw is very important. And one of the most important plays, again, I was just mentioning that Cagnazzo goes in tandem with them. If your opponent doesn't see it, right? So you have Layla Viking, and then let's say a few backups, you drop Halicarnassus, they're like, sure, no problem. Then you drop Cagnazzo. Cagnazzo's gonna board wipe at least 3-4k, because not everyone has a water backup or Maria out for the Layla Vikings or anything that buffs them. So only the mono water mirror match has that backup. And when you do that, they're gonna have, let's say, 3 Vikings or 2 Vikings, depending on the deck or depending on how many times they've drawn the Viking, because they want to draw cards, and then you just clear their board. They've minused and they future minus too. They're not in the position where they're going to be drawing all those cards back, and it's very important. Same thing with the Y'shtola. When you Halicarnassus the Y'shtola, they either have to negate it instantly by breaking the Y'shtola, which solves our problems anyway, in order to like negate the other effects on the board from being vanilla'd or blanketed, whatever you want to call it. But it's free. He just summoned Halicarnassus, because it is a queen, I believe, comes out, and then just sometimes Y'shtola just removes herself for us. If not, that does leave her open to be Fusoya'd, as well as our summons to be playable. So another very important part against that matchup. Daddaloom is the same thing. If we drop Halicarnassus by itself, as long as we have Minwu out, he can't respond to break stuff. Like, can't ping to deal 4, can't ping to deal 4. He could ping, but, like, it's not going to get anywhere, right? As long as we have the Minwu out. At worst case scenario, he does just take the Halicarnassus or anything else. But it's still better than not have. It's just, it leaves us open to be able to Fusoya and, like, let's say, Chukulane him and do anything of that nature. And yeah, that's it. Those are the oh, another one, Noctis too. Noctis is another like annoying card. So what I've had to do in the past too is drop Halicarnassus and force them to either pitch, generate the CP. So Noctis's next damage is 0, but then I can always like just respond anyway. So it's kind of like a trade there. Either way, I'm going to end up killing the Noctis, but it also helps me let me get those points of damage when they don't want to lose the Noctis. There's a lot of mind games here you have to play against those kinds of decks, but Halicarnassus definitely helps you, gives you an extra edge against all those decks. I wouldn't play more than 3. It is a dead card later sometimes, so it's usually my first card to pitch, but I never pitch them both, like, because I know the other way to get it back is to land a special, which I have done before, but it is not possible to do it more than once sometimes. I'm not saying it's impossible. I have lent a special twice in one game, but it's usually for the Cloud of Darkness. But yeah, so Halicarnassus is very important, and my new favorite card. Triple Viking, pretty simple. You want to draw, that's your draw engine. The Layla gets you there. Now, I want to talk about the 2 Poro. Again, there's kind of a trend here, and I guess you guys will notice that. But I was telling you that I was playing Ferris mainly because I wanted to, like reveal and like search for things, kind of filter through the deck a little bit. But Porom is such a better card for that. Even though it is only 3 cards, it's like a pot of duality. Like you draw it. It's from a Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference. You'll pick up 3 and you'll pick 1 or whatever, right? And then you put the rest at the bottom. That's amazing. Like, I kind of wish it was just like either put it back on top or back at the bottom, but it's not that serious. That's just like a let's make it more broke kind of card. But no, and the other very important part is the ability to stop an action ability. And right now, Yuri and Y'shtola are really, really, really important cards. And so having a Porom on the board when your opponent drops a Yuri on like at all is insane. They'll never see it coming. I promise you. Like they might be aware of it, but it's gonna be an oversight for the most part. Like I want to say 70 to 85% of the time. So let's say, for example, here's my favorite scenario, by the way, with Porom. So you have Porom have been out for a whole turn on your, and then you go Layla Viking. They go no problem, and then you drop Cloud of Darkness, targeting Y'shtola or targeting something else, targeting something important, right? Like an AK. I don't know. Let's say Yuri with no buff, right? He's going to automatically negate it with Y'shtola. And if you guys don't know, Y'shtola is an action ability because it is a cost. You can literally tap Fusoya if you felt like it. If Fusoya is dead especially. Tap Fusoya for 1 colorless CP, for 1 light CP. They'll Porom and negate Y'shtola's cancel. You'll get a 2-for-1 off the Cloud of Darkness drop. Yeah, these are the kind of plays that I've had to... that you kind of want to make when you're playing against the water. Anything with Y'shtola, obviously, because it's going to force them to do stupid things like that anyway. And you're going to 2-for-1. And that's kind of the whole premise of the Fusoya engine, really. You want to, like, 2-for-1 special. And, yeah, Porom's our safety net for those things. Same thing with the Yuris, for example. Let's say they'll drop a Yuri, and then, on their turn, they're just going to plan to Dull Freeze you. Sure, you can or whatever, or ping something for 4, whatever, make something, you'll just negate the first one. Porom will just tap sideways, and then you can negate Yuri's ability, whatever they choose to. So those are the main reasons Porom's important right now. But obviously there are other action abilities that are relevant. But still, I think I've stopped the Star Sybil once a couple times. They didn't see it coming. They're like, oh snap, and yeah, so Porom just did that. I can't think of other ones right now, but it does stop a Cactuar too. It stops all those things, man. So very important for overall meta. And then next card is going to be 2 Cloud of Darkness. I've been trying to fit in the third one, and as much as I want to, the only thing I can do would probably be to cut out a backup. I'm not set on it yet. 2 Cloud of Darkness is plenty. You'll end up, for me personally, I don't know, man. I usually end up drawing all of them, or trying them at the worst times, or getting hit with them. So I would always pitch them. But since I cut it down to 2, I've always been in the right spot. I'll always have 1, and then I'll be able to play it when I need to, or I end up having to pitch 1 and then run into the next one eventually. It's not the ideal situation, but 2s, I'm comfortable with 2, and I like having 2. I have tested with 3, like I said, but I was trying to find more space for more backups, because I felt like it's important to be able to consistently open up backups. So adding the extra Gladiator in this deck, that's why I'm at 18, made a big difference. The next thing is the triple Lena, and again, it's just pretty much for control the game. You want to get value all the time. So pitching the Ephemerals obviously helps the Fusoya play. Late game Knights is important. And then I found, because I'm playing the 2 Cloud of Darkness, I found myself in a position where I'm always doing Lena special offensively, or reactively, if you will. So scenarios are really just like attack with Halicarnassus or Cloud of Darkness or whatever, and then I'll end up going Lena special when they block or respond with anything to Reborn Cagnazzo, and they don't see that coming either. They forget that it's like I can do it like in response sometimes, and so it's really important. I can also do late game the Halicarnassus Reborn, which is very important. But yeah, so that's it for the monsters. I did play Yuri. So this water deck also originally was a mono water with Yuri kind of thing. I don't like Yuri in it. It's not good enough for me in this deck. It works well in other decks, don't get me wrong, but not in water. That's just my opinion. Again, let me have it in the comments, guys. I don't care. Backups are simple. I ended up on 2 Gladiators, mainly because of the Knight late game, as well as the Viking, just to kind of make it through it. So triple Scholar for pretty much anything. I've, again, going in tandem with Cagnazzo and Halicarnassus, those are my 2 favorite things to Scholar back, and then a third close would be the Cloud of Darkness. I have done Lenas, or I have done Laylas in the past also. I've actually done everything probably except Porom's in the past. But yeah, Scholar is very important. Sometimes, I won't lie, I will put down 2 Scholars. If I open 2 Scholars, that'll leave me an option to save something always. So don't, just because you open 2 Scholars doesn't mean you want to pitch a Scholar for a Scholar. Scholar is very important in this deck. There isn't enough recursion, I would say. There's a lot of control, but there's enough recursion for you to get stuff back long enough. So protecting things with the second Scholar might be very important. Triple Yuna, because I just want to make the summons very cheap. 2 Bran, again, there is 5 targets, but there is 6 targets, but 2 Bran's plenty. I was playing 3 and the 1 Minwoo, but I like it better this way. And 2 Minwoo, I know, I believe the Chinese lists or the Japanese lists don't play Minwoos anymore. I can't bring myself to that. It might be like a region thing, but yeah, it doesn't provide value immediately like a lot of those other players like to play. Like that's the argument, right? It's like dropping something that doesn't provide value. I disagree. Saving CP, like saving you from losing actual CP on the board is important to me, so I find that to be very important. And yeah, the Dataluma is just such an important combo that it's very important. And a lot of other decks do that too. Like, so Minwoo is more important now with Yuri Chelenka. As long as Waka's out, Vikings don't lose to Chelenka when she comes out. And then they have to, like, they'll try to, some will just forget and they'll try to Alhanel them too and waste like a whole CP that turn, kind of ruin everything. because Minwu's so important. Waka is also just the buffs everybody. Also, in tandem with Minwu, very important, just kind of helps them, give them that extra range of survivability. And I play the one Merle Whip. The reason I play this Merle Whip over the other Merle Whip is because this lets me insta-fix whatever I'm searching for. And what I mean by that is, let's say I have the Lena and the Fusoya ready, but I don't have the Ephemeral. I'll drop the Merle Whip a turn, or whenever I'm right as I'm setting up for it, and I will get the Ephemeral. Boom, play the Ephemeral, put Fanfrit, whatever I want, Fusoya, done. Boom, let's go. Same thing with the Viking. So the brands will help us fix the Layla Viking thing, but we don't have anything for Layla or Cloud of Darkness or Halicarnassus or Cagnazzo. Every piece is important, right? And so Merle Whip is the one hot fix for this. There is a rule though to this deck. I will not play Bran unless I absolutely have, I won't have Bran and Merle Whip in the same backup lineup in one game unless I'm super ahead, right? And the reason is because you will lock yourself out, because you can't have Bran, Yuna, Minwu, Waka, Merle Whip, Fusoya. You understand? These are all backups that have to stay. They don't break themselves. So playing the Merle Whip or the Bran in one game is very important. Is very important discipline for when you're playing this deck. And I don't know if people talk about these kinds of things a lot when you're, for other deck profiles, but I think it's important for us to know this kind of information, really. And yeah, like I said, Merle Whip just fixes it. If I open no backups, Merle Whip Viking, we're good to go. Let's go. I'll end up pitching to drop Merle Whip, get Layla next turn, Layla Viking, then go on from there. So yeah. The next card is Fusoya, and it's obviously Fusoya because it is called Mono Water Fusoya. So the reason the idea behind this card, at first I was never fond of it because of taking the damage, and I don't like using life as a resource. But I've actually grown fond of it. The problem is that this card sucks for tiebreakers too. I also forgot to mention the other the other good result this deck took me was at the reunion. I got 10th place. I was just two spaces short of top 8. I went X2 with it. But yeah, anyway, Fusoya is very important. It's pretty much the premise of the deck. The idea behind it is you want to pick off your targets and then trade to kind of keep the board advantage. So 7k to most ice things will kill. Remember, if that Illuma does break off your stuff, you can ping it for 7k and it'll die. And then just a couple of Noctis, and then there's other things that are in that 7k nice range that are just good enough. But yeah, so that's the main backup. You want to use that with Ephemeral and Cagnazzo and Halicarnassus to get rid of stuff. And those trades help you take the lead in the game pretty much. So yeah, if you Fusoya with Fanfrit, well, I'm going to get into the summons right now. And the summons, super simple, but very important. Obviously, triple Fanfrit, the Darkening Cloud. This is the most powerful card most powerful, one of the most powerful summons. It's up there with 5-cost Diabolos, in my opinion. But it's very strong. That's actually why people play Water Wind, right? Because it has the best of both worlds. The argument is Mono Water Fusoya is great, right? But Water Wind is Mono Water, but adding Diabolos and Ishtola, which is everything you're missing, right? And you know what? I see both sides of the argument, but I prefer this playstyle. And Fanfrit again is just the help you trades. So you'll Ephemeral, ping something for 7, and then Fanfrit will say choose something else. Then you pick Ephemeral or Viking or whatever else you want to get rid of, and then him. And then your opponent will pick one. So you're always going to go for the 2-for-1. Same thing for the Leviathan. You will pop something and then send the other one back to his hand. Kuchulain is there for, if you can 2-for-1, go for it. But if you can't, it's there to take on the bigger threats. You would drop, you would Fusoya, or you would bring Kuchulain to the top, and then Fusoya something, let's say 10k, and then it would reduce it in the difference. And then you draw a card. So, yeah. This is the deck, guys. Again, it's been doing super well for me. There's still things I want to try to fix in here. I'm really missing not playing Ashe lately. But Halicarnassus just does so much for me from like an offensive purpose as opposed to defensive. The matchups are great. Honestly, this deck is strong against a lot of things. The ones you have to always be on the lookout for, though, is, I will be honest, is Ice and Scions. Like mono Ice, it's just the reason I say that is because we don't have stuff like Ash anymore, right? We don't have that activation. So what'll end up happening is they'll either freeze a lot of us and we kind of have to play a little longer, or we'll end up having to get a lot of stuff discarded, and then I'm not gonna say it takes a lot of setup, but it's harder to come back when you're frozen and you're discarding. It's not a bad deficit for us. It's not like a 50-50 matchup or like a even worse than that percentage, but it's not the best. That's the one you'll probably have the most trouble with. I personally believe that this has a strong matchup against Earth Wind Adeluma and Water Wind. But again, it all comes down to play styles as well. I'm confident in both of those matchups. What's the last one? Yeah, no, it does well. I guess if it doesn't draw Fusoya, it's bad against the Earth Water matchup. If they drew Fusoya and you don't, it's obvious you're not gonna be like in a good spot. But it's not impossible to get out of it. It's just, you have to play better. Yeah, man, that's it for the deck, guys. Again, for me, this deck has been very successful. I'm still trying to find ways to tweak it and stuff I want to test. I was messing with Oracle to try to help the Fusoyas too, but it's not worth it. It's just another card that doesn't break and it gets stuck itself. Like I said, I was playing Ferris. I was playing Titus. I was playing. I took out Minwoo for a while, and I put the little Moogle one. I think it's Moogle Knight or whatever, and it just taps. Yeah, I don't know, man. There was a lot of things, but this is what I landed on, and it seems it's very consistent. It's very promising. Please let me know when you guys test it out, or if you test it out. Yeah, and I will see you guys next time. We're gonna be talking Opus 8 stuff next week. Hopefully, we'll get more spoilers in between then. But anyway, thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you next time.